ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
I should be asking you guys about Pat because you guys seem to have more knowledge about it than any of the players. So how's Pat going?
Fast bowler Mitchell Starc with the question on every Australian cricket fan's mind. How's Pat going? In case you missed it, there's been several reports this week painting a bleak picture around his involvement in the Ashes. Cricket Australia and sources close to Cummins tell us it's too early to say. Others tell us they're bearish about the skipper's prospects. The evolving story raises bulk questions around the captain, the men who might replace him in a bowling capacity, and the one who will do so from a skipper point of view. I'm Patrick Stack. This is ABC Sport Daily. Alex Malcolm is a journalist with Cricinfo. Alex, Pat Cummins back is at the front of the Aussie cricket conversation. We've seen reports from Channel 9 papers and News Corp that things are looking grim for the Ashes. Cricket Australia and the bowlers' management are saying, whoa, too early to say. Mitch Starc just happened to be due a press conference today with the Sydney Sixers. Did we get much of a read from his long-time teammate, Mitchell Starc?
No, as ever with Mitch, he was pretty cagey and pretty defensive on a number of issues and pleaded ignorance, for want of a better term, on Pat's back, suggesting that perhaps media members knew more than he did, or his teammates, or even the Cricket Australia staff about the state of where Pat Cummins is at in terms of playing in that first test match. So I wouldn't read too much into that. And as he suggested, his timelines and where he's training and how he's training is now progressed to a stage where he's bowling. So they'll be operating at different phases and probably won't see a lot of each other.
A lot of my times now with the Blues around skill sessions and out bowling. Obviously, Pat is still in his program and has obviously got a few sets of eyes on him in his return. So he's in good spirits. He's ultra positive as always. And there's still some weeks to go before we get to Perth for the test prep. So we'll see where that lands.
As ever, Mitch didn't give a lot away, and so it's hard to get a great read on where Pat Cummins is at heading into Perth.
It's a super interesting story, and ex-Test opener Ed Cowan actually kind of articulated a bit of a doomsday situation 3 or 4 weeks ago on our cricket podcast.
You'd probably say he's not going to, and this is mere speculation, that he's not going to be there for Perth. And it's probably a new year. You know, maybe it's Adelaide.
And I feel as though the common wisdom seems to be sort of 4 to 6 weeks of work is needed to get test ready. We're 6 weeks out from the first test. And Starc was asked if it was him, how much work he would require. How did he frame that sort of aspect of it as someone who would know?
Yeah, it tends to be a little bit longer than that. Even 4 to 6 weeks is at the very tight end in terms of the types of build that they want to do as far as loads go. It's complicated. Without getting too far into the weeds, they basically have graphs of load management for each individual player. Every ball bowled at training is tracked. The guys are wearing GPS measuring devices on their back when they train, so that everything is tracked down to the metre that they run essentially. And the way they like to do it is they like to build up the loads progressively. Essentially, they don't want high spikes. So you don't want to be going from nothing to a big spike, as in playing a test match where you could potentially bowl 40 overs in the space of 5 days. So they'd like to progressively build up and build up and build up over time, which would include matches in the lead-in. So it'd be very difficult for Pat to go from 0, which he's at the moment, to playing in a test match in Perth where he could redline and bowl 40 overs in 4 days. So that's the reason why this timeline, him not having bowled since July to now, leading into a test match 6 weeks away, is really problematic for Cricket Australia and for Pat Cummins.
That's great context to understand what goes into it. And I think when you're talking about someone's, back hotspot healing, it's such an opaque thing to be sort of getting your head around. And this is a tough question to answer. When do you think that they'll have to make a call, or when they might have certainty one way or another?
My understanding is, based off the scan in early September when we sort of first found out as a public, the timeline that he's currently on is not out of whack with what they'd planned at that point. He hadn't been planned to have bowled by this stage. They are, to my understanding, increasing what he can do physically. That would include running, that would include some rotational stuff. At the moment, he's only been able to do, in the last month or so, he's only been able to do sort of lower leg loading stuff, which is a lot of, for those who are listening, calf raises, tibialis works, stuff in the feet to strengthen feet and make sure that that's all well and good for when he starts to run again. And then you've got to add rotational stuff in, because fast bowling is a rotational exercise essentially, and then it'll be bowling. So they'll just keep adding things and seeing what his back can handle. So my understanding is that that's the progression now, and that he is progressing in that space. It would probably take another 1 to 2 weeks of that, and then they'd maybe start some bowling at low intensity from there. I'd say probably 2 to 3 weeks before they'd really know. I think once they hit that mark, they'll have a definite idea of where he's at and when a return to actual bowling intensity and potentially playing in a game, a picture of that would become clearer.
It's been easy to default to the idea that, hey, Scott Boland comes in, problem solved. But given we're talking about a 5-test series, unlikely the top three, Boland, Hazelwood, Starc, play all 5 tests. Who do we see as the next bowler or bowlers in the mix to be the bullpen?
So there's a group of them. First sort of cab off the rank would be Brendan Doggett. It would depend on the surface, actually. The way the Australian selectors like to pick their bowling attack, outside of the big three, they like to have an attack that sort of complements each other with different skill sets. They see Boland and Hazelwood as very similar in terms of their style of bowling, and those guys can be interchangeable. They like to have the extra ball speed of Starc as something, a point of difference, and the left armour. So Doggett sort of fits in that mould. As a strike bowler, we saw what he did in the Sheffield Shield final last year.
Doggett coming into bowl now to Jimmy Pearson. That strikes him on the pad as he plays across the line. Big appeal and given. Big wicket for South Australia just after lunch. Jimmy Pearson falls for an unlucky 13. Doggett has another, his third.
He was in the squad for the West Indies tour, but then had a hip problem, so he was sent home. He missed the first Shield game with a slight hammy, but he's probably first cab off the rank in certain conditions, certainly for Perth, maybe even for Adelaide. If it's a pink ball game and they need someone in that second test match, Michael Neser would come into the equation. He bowled beautifully for Queensland against Tasmania. A pretty flat wicket at Allan Borderfield last week. Took 4 wickets in the first innings.
Oh, yes, he's caught him.
What a catch.
That's a great reflex effort from Michael Neser to get rid of Jake Weatherall.
And then Sean Abbott is the other one who has been in and around the squad. He went to Sri Lanka as part of the Test squad earlier this year, went to the West Indies as the replacement for Doggett. So they're probably the first 3, and then you're starting to talk about Jai Richardson. His bowling is coming back online sooner rather than later. He's got his speeds up to the low 120s, coming off shoulder surgery, and he's bowling off his full run.
There's no specific timeline in place at the moment, but I think returning to some sort of competitive cricket, whether or not it's club cricket or second 11, sometime in November, I think would be a good start, and then build up from there and then see where it takes us.
That's probably the 4 you're thinking about. I doubt you'd need to go any further than that, but they've obviously got Fergus O'Neill as well, who has bbeen the leading wicket taker in Shield cricket alongside Nathan McAndrew, who's another. They're 2 guys that would be also in the mix if they had needed to go further down.
The other thread is captaincy. Can you remember how divisive Steve Smith leading Australia in any capacity was at times over the journey post-Sandpaper Gate? Now, much like Gilchrist conquering India when Ponting was missing, Smith might get to preside over a classic, iconic, huge Ashes series. It's kind of wild.
It is, but he's captained Australia 40 times in Test cricket. I know that the sandpaper issue is still a big deal for a lot of people, but he's captained Australia 6 times since then. He's done it in an Ashes series. He did it in the second test of the 2021-22 Ashes, and that was only 2 tests into Pat Cummins' tenure as the Test captain after Tim Payne resigned. So he did it then. He did it in an Adelaide Test a year after that against West Indies. He captained in 2 Test matches in India in the 2023 series in both Indore and Ahmedabad, and then he captained obviously in the Sri Lanka series early this year. Both Test matches when Cummins missed with an ankle.
We've got a group of us that have played cricket with Steve as captain anyway, and then the times that he's filled in over the last few seasons for Pat, whether it be for personal reasons, for illness, or for injury, it's an easy transition for Steve. Certainly the it seems that way.
So he's done a great job. Australia actually haven't lost a test match, I don't think, since when he stood in the last 6 that he's done, since Cummins has been captain. I think he's, including the India series there, he's 5 wins and a draw. So, he's got all the experience in the world. They've got all the systems in place. The guys are really well drilled in terms of their roles. Nothing really changes. He's a different personality, but not a lot changes. I think it'll be pretty seamless for them. I'm not sure it's going to be a big issue. Probably more the public messaging. Pat's a very calm guy, handles that well. Steve's a different type of character, but he's learned a lot over the journey. He's very experienced, so I'm sure he'll handle whatever he needs to, and I don't think it'll be a huge problem for them.
I think it'd be a great story. Hey, a late tangent. Mitch Starc was actually talking in his capacity as a BBL player today, and he was asked about the New World Order we're approaching around, the summer maybe potentially being reshaped by private investment.
My only view on it, I'm fine with BBL windows. The only view I have on it is the Test cricket schedule is not to be touched. Test cricket is the pinnacle. I don't think Test cricket should make way for T20 cricket at all, whether it's the BBL, the IPL, anything. The Test summer is the Test summer. I would hate to see that change for domestic cricket.
I loved the passion in his answer, and he was careful in how he worded it somehow, but it also sounded like a bit of a heads up to Cricket Australia to me. What did you think?
He deserves a lot of credit, and he is underappreciated for how much he has prioritised playing for Australia and playing Test cricket for Australia over making a lot of money in franchise cricket, specifically the IPL. He spent a long time not going to the IPL at huge personal cost in order to keep himself physically and mentally ready for huge test match loads. And he's obviously played 100 test matches now and taken 400 wickets and been an enormous contributor over a long period of time.
Starc moves in again with the crowd behind him into Dicewell. It's on the pads. Oh, he's caught a square leg, and Mitch Marsh has taken the catch. And Starc, how often does he do this? And he strikes early in his opening over. Dicewell has gone.
He might be the last one of those, actually, but he is sounding a warning that a lot of others are making a lot of noise about. Kane Williamson made some interesting comments just the other day about, the investment in Test cricket. He missed Test matches for New Zealand against Zimbabwe during the middle of the year in order to play in the 100, and that was a financial decision. He also played for Middlesex. He did a full stint there over the winter. So, it's something that Cricket Australia is acutely aware of. There have been discussions behind the scenes, actually, about the current state of the MOU and whether it's fit for purpose. Starc's words are prescient, and he deserves a lot of credit, as I said, for leading the charge on this, but not every player behind him is going to feel the same way. So it's something that Cricket Australia do need to be very wary of, and a lot of boards around the world are dealing with it already with their playing groups.
Alex Malcolm, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, Patrick.
Headlines. Staying with cricket, and the national women's team got out of cricketing jail at the Women's ODI World Cup. The ladies were 7 for 76 against Pakistan and staring at a calamitous defeat before Beth Mooney stepped up with an insane 100.
Beth Mooney with a memorable 100 here in Colombo, her 5th 100 in one-day internationals and her first in World Cup tournaments, and this has rescued Australia from a deep hole here in Colombo.
What a boss. Hey, Alana King was also pivotal. She made a half-century batting at 11 as the Australians eventually posted 9 for 221. Pakistan promptly folded with the bat, all out for 114. Kim Garth had the best figures of 3 for 14, while Annabelle Sutherland and Ash Gardner also took 2 scalps each. More bubble and froth from the world of the AFL trade period. Jamara Ugle-Hagan has met with Gold Coast officials as he eyes a potential move from the Bulldogs to the Suns. The former number 1 draft pick has endured a horror 2025 where he did not play in the AFL after some well-documented off-field issues. Elsewhere, Geelong and Sydney remain on the hunt for Charlie Curnow with the contracted but well-sought-after Carlton forward eager to leave the Navy Blues. Cats midfielder Bailey Smith posted a snap on Instagram of the pair having a kick of the footy, which would have had Geelong fans absolutely salivating. To stay across everything, you should check out ABC Sport website's rolling blog. They will keep you up to date. In netball, the Diamonds have claimed their series with South Africa with a game still to play, beating the visitors by 27 goals in Wollongong. That is a shellacking. The Australians have a 48-game winning streak going against South Africa. Game 3 is on Sunday before the Constellation Cup with New Zealand fires up next week on Patrick's Stack. This is ABC Sport Daily, produced by Poppy Penny. Thanks to Cricket Australia and the ICC for the extra audio used in this episode.
Discover more great ABC podcasts, live radio and exclusives on the ABC Listen app.